Trying to grow your business without growing your overhead? You're not alone. In today's day and age, it is harder than ever for businesses to continue to scale efficiently without necessarily adding in a ton of new costs. And that's why I found it really effective over the years to build a freelance bench. A freelance bench is a collection of highly qualified specialists that can help me do different jobs that I may not have the capacity or budget in order to hire a full-time hire for. And I also sometimes don't have the choice to be able to hire a really expensive agency that's going to ask me for a monthly retainer. So that's why I've turned to Upwork for all these sorts of things, whether it's lead generation, helping out with different graphic design, or even more recently with a paid ads audit. I have been able to find a ton of amazing talent on Upwork. This video is sponsored by Upwork, but everything I'm about to share with you is from my own personal experience of using the platform for over a decade. In this video, I'm going to share with you an exact example of a job listing I posted on Upwork and why I was able to find effective help to give you some tips and tricks in case you're looking for some freelance help for yourself. And then hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be inspired enough to create your own job listing and try to delegate something out for your business to continue scaling on its way. All right, so here's the situation. Over the last 9 months or so, for a business that we've been working for, we had spent over $200,000 on paid ads and we were seeing results, but I had this hunch that it wasn't as efficient as it could be. The reason why we thought this was because we were hopping into these bi-weekly meetings with this agency that we were paying a monthly retainer for, and we noticed over time that they were saying some of the same stuff. Whether numbers were going up or numbers were going down, their recommendations were largely the same. And so we thought it was time for us to get some fresh perspectives on the problem. And that's exactly why we then turned to Upwork, because we needed somebody to dig in, get their hands dirty, audit what was working, tell us what wasn't working, as well as show us how to scale smarter. But we didn't necessarily have somebody full-time in-house because at our paid spend levels, we didn't necessarily warrant needing somebody full-time to be looking at this problem. So what we did was we posted a job on Upwork to find some freelance consultants that would be able to bring that expertise that we wanted and that strategic firepower on a budget while also giving us some flexibility. So let's jump into this Upwork job listing and I'll break down for you exactly why it worked really well in terms of hiring a couple of freelancers very quickly within a week and a half. The first thing that you always want to do when you are posting something on Upwork is make it really clear exactly what you're looking for. And you can see this is being done here with the title of my listing, which is seeking 2 to 3 B2B SaaS Google Ads experts for performance audit and scaling recommendations. If you are going to follow this model, what this means is you want to make it really clear how many people are you hiring for and what is the job. Then from there, I always start out with some sort of summary overview of what it is that I want done. In this case, we're looking for 2 to 3 highly specialized Google Ads consultants with a proven record of helping optimize campaigns for B2B SaaS brands. And then from there, I give some context, which I just shared with you, as well as I ask for an audit of 5 to 7 actionable recommendations that will help us scale our performance, improve key metrics, and validate the potential of scaling our budget for more sustained weekly conversion growth. I always like to start with this overview section because it just kind of provides you with a lead in into everything else in the job listing. And it just allows people to get a TLDR in terms of what's going on in this respective RFP. Project scope is where you then dig into more of what you are actually looking for. So in this case, I'm looking for an audit. I'm looking for an assessment in terms of analyzing performance metrics with special attention to search-based ads. I'm looking for them to take a look at my user journey and what is working, what is not, as well as some strategic recommendations for whether, Google's scaling suggestion aligns with actually a potential increase in weekly conversions from paid search. Whenever you are posting a job, you'll want to start with that overview. You'll then want to go over scope, and then you'll want to talk about deliverables. In this case, I clearly state what my deliverables are. It's a detailed audit report with 5 to 7 actionable takeaways, strategic insights for where I could potentially expand out keywords, an evaluation of budget scaling recommendations, and then from there, I have my application requirements. For application requirements, I always like to ask for the following. What is their relevant experience? Do they have clear, explicit examples of how they've done this in the past for other clients? What are some preliminary insights? If you're able to give them a very quick raw data set, it's helpful to just see how deep is their actual expertise, because the experts are typically able to just give you a high-level 10,000-foot view just from taking a quick look at that. And then from there, in terms of the actual structure for the contract, I like to start out with fixed rate contracts. The reason is really simple. At the end of the day, you are starting a new relationship with a freelancer. And so the worst thing that you can do for yourself as a business owner is to get too deep into a proposal without even building out any trust on both sides here. So Through the years of hundreds and hundreds of contracts, what I have found is that it is always better to start out with a fixed rate contract, just so that it's a lower stakes sort of milestone. The two of you can just get a sense of what it's like to work together. Do you guys vibe together? Do you guys not vibe together? And then from there, it also makes it so that the deliverable is either 0 or 1. It's done or it's not done, as opposed to the case where I see some people tell me that they went on Upwork, they hired somebody, but then they were on hourly and then they got overbilled for a bunch of other stuff. And so I always like to start out with fixed rate contracts for at least the first milestone or two. And then once some baseline trust is established, you can then definitely move it to some sort of hourly contract and go from there. The other thing that I like to share as a tip is always include some sort of secret word. So in this case, I'm using Timberwolves, but it just makes it so that it filters through some of the folks that are just blindly applying for different RFPs on Upwork. And then from there, I also say that if they submit early by April 11th in this situation, then early submissions are encouraged. And then from there, I do a couple smaller things in optimization for this listing. So going over what some of those smaller optimizations are, the first thing is Upwork's going to ask you what sort of expertise are you looking for, an entry-level person, an intermediate person, or an expert. I chose expert in this case. They'll also ask you as to whether or not you want to create some custom screening questions. And I always do this for at least 1 to 3 different questions. So in this case, I provided a quick Google Doc just to see if I could get a sense of their Google Ads chops from just this quick link that I was sharing. I also like to actually select skills and expertise. So in this case, I've selected SEO keyword research, search engine marketing strategy, PPC campaign setup and management, Google Ads, and so on. And so you'll always want to select 5 to 7 because that will then allow Upwork's database to help you identify who are some of the best fits for you. Once you've posted your job listing, you always want to use your invites. It's one of the fastest ways that you can get proposals for your job. I believe that Upwork will give you roughly 30 invites that you can then use to invite freelancers to bid on your request for proposal. What I always recommend you do is you always filter. When I filter, I like to filter for the following: at least $100 earned, because it means that you are not going to be their very first contract on Upwork, 80% or more in terms of job success, last activity in the last month or so. And then this is personal preference, but personally, I actually really like working with freelancers because I find that they have a higher level of accountability than those that potentially work for agencies. That's just from my personal experience though, so your mileage may vary depending on what you want there. And then what I also like to look for is at least 1 or more hours billed. And if you have a certain hourly rate in mind because you already know what that might look like, then feel free to choose that. Otherwise, you can close the filter. The other thing I like to do is if you know where you can find some great talent on a global level for the job you're looking for, feel free to select different locations. For example, I know there's really great talent in Europe, and so I might isolate for just Europe, or I might include Europe into the mix so that it will then filter for different folks that will meet the bill there. Then from there, I like to use different keywords. So in this case, I typed in B2B SaaS, Google Ads. And then what I'm looking for is I'm just kind of going through these different listings and going through the profiles to see what it is that makes them a great candidate for my job listing. A few tips when you're reviewing people's profiles. The first thing is look for how much they've earned and how many jobs and hours they've put on Upwork. That's a great sign of confidence because it means you're not going to be the first client they've ever worked with. In this case, I can see their 100% job success rate, which is great. They have this sort of video where they're running through their Google Ads, which I would then watch and figure out, okay, is this something that fits the bill in terms of what I'm looking for? I like it when they have clear testimonials and it's really clear what their impact is in terms of their clients. So that's really helpful. And then what I also like to do is I like to scroll into their most recent projects and see what the experience was for different folks. So in this case, this would potentially be one small area of concern and whatnot with this respective person. Sometimes you also see that the freelancers are given the opportunity to respond as well as to, why they believe they got that rating. But always check out some of their portfolio sections as well. I kind of give myself a personal rule where I'll review it for about a minute or so and then move on to the next person. My number one job at this point in the job listing process is just to get my invites out. So I like to send all of the invites that I'm given and then just log off Upwork for a few hours, come back and then review the proposals. If you follow this process though, and you have the right budget set for your project, then you will typically have at least 5 or so proposals, if not more, to review the next time you log in. By the way, if you've never created your own Upwork job listing, feel free to do so with a free account in the video description below. It doesn't cost a thing, and you can start to see some of the talent just like I'm showing you right now in this video. All right, so once you have invited people and they're starting to respond, that's when you then will review your proposals. What I like to do when it comes to reviewing proposals is I like to see how many people can follow directions. So I mentioned earlier how I had that secret word Timberwolves, and I'm just seeing who actually used that secret word and who didn't, because that will already filter out half the responses. And that means that in many of those cases that they don't have attention to detail because they didn't actually read the full listing. So I would go ahead and exclude some of these people and just, thumbs down different folks. And the other thing I like to do is I like to use this thumbs up and thumbs down system, just because sometimes I have other team members and I want them to see who I've already shortlisted as well as who I haven't. So that's what you can see in some of these different cases where you have some thumbs up. So what you can do is you can click into their profiles and then learn a little bit more about them. It's very similar to what I showed you just a little bit ago when you were in the invite screen. The cool thing as well in terms of Upwork is that they've added some more AI functionality too. So in the case where you're not really that confident in terms of your hiring abilities for freelancers, because maybe you've never done it before, you can just click compare top matches. And then what Upwork's going to do is they're going to review these profiles for you and give you some insights as to what you might find interesting in different scenarios. So it takes a few seconds to load, but you can see here that essentially what Upwork's done is it's synthesized for me, okay, Constantine specializes in B2B SaaS. Things to consider though, they're new to Upwork. They might be a little bit more limited in terms of platform specific feedback. And then similarly, they look at some other bids here and you can see that this person higher bid compared to other proposals, which might impact your budget. This feature is an amazing feature for new people on Upwork because sometimes it's a little daunting to make your first freelance hire, especially if you've never done it before, but Upwork's making it easier and easier for people to figure out who is quality talent from who isn't. So in the case where you are going to post on Upwork, there's really 5 things that I always recommend when it comes to a checklist of things to consider. The first thing is always post with a really clear scope. Tell people exactly what it is that you want in this project. The second thing is make it really clear what your budget is and make sure that the person is aligned with your budget. If they aren't aligned with your budget, feel free to negotiate with them and figure out what they could drop from their proposal in order to meet your budget. The third thing is past performance in terms of clear evidence that they can do the job. This is when you look at different testimonials or their portfolio links and just figure out if you have high confidence that they can do the job that you're looking for. The fourth thing is pre-hiring insights. So this typically comes from just the conversation process of talking to different freelancers. You can see things like, are they really quick to respond to you? Do they take forever to get back to you? What are some of the different signs and subtle things that you can pick up on that will give you clarity as to whether or not they're a good fit for you and your work style? And the final thing is timeline expectations. Can they actually deliver the project on the timeline that you're looking for? If they can't do that, then you should move on to another person. Almost always there is somebody out there. Upwork is such a massive global marketplace that you're bound to find talent if you just spend a little bit more time on the platform looking for it. Ultimately, you can find pretty much anyone for any job that you're looking for on Upwork. There's never been a case where I haven't been able to find a qualified freelancer that can help me out in the specific specialty that I am looking for help in. So what ended up happening in my respective example was I ended up hiring 2 freelancers. One person, I focused them in on the keyword structure, and the other one I focused in on the conversion flow and CRO. And then together we flagged in different opportunities for underperforming segments, focused in on some search-based ad waste, and then went to our agency and was able to provide some meaningful strategic insights that we were then able to change in our project in order to see increased performance. But also in the process of doing so, I was then able to fill in the gaps as to where my agency was falling short with this extra help that I hired from Upwork. The best part of all is that this project was done from listing to finished state within 2 to 3 weeks, which is an amazing timeline because it didn't require us to onboard a completely new agency or somebody else that would then take several weeks in order to complete this audit. So in the case where you are a business owner looking for some specialized help, whether it's lead generation, graphic design, or paid ad support, Upwork is 100% worth exploring. You can post your first free job on upwork.com, or you can use the link in the video description below if you want to support the channel. And if you would find it useful for me to share more templates in terms of exactly how you can post effective job listings on Upwork to find the freelance help you need, just leave some comments below and I'll be sure to follow up with you to share those resources with you. Otherwise, try it out and let me know how it goes. Who knows, your next business breakthrough might just be one freelancer away.